What's up, everybody? Steve Skojec here. Welcome back to another episode of the Steve Skojec Show. This is an unplanned emergency episode. I don't know. It's not really an emergency. Mostly I'm just pissed off. So here's why. The drone situation in New Jersey, but not just New Jersey, Virginia, Tennessee, Wyoming, New Orleans, Louisiana, Ohio, New York, Long Island. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. These drones have been showing up in California. They have been all over the freaking place, right? So we all know this. So there's a problem here because we got a lot of stonewalling from the Pentagon and the White House under the Biden administration. And Trump had said that he was going to be transparent with us. But he hasn't been transparent with us because a statement came out today and I've got a big problem with it. But let's get to that in a second because what I want to do is rewind a little bit. Remember back in December, we got this from the Pentagon. So let's start here.
So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but, at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a taste of what we were playing with, right? That was December 15th, I believe. So what we got is they're not a foreign adversary. They're not a foreign entity that we're aware of. And then we got an unfortunate clarifying question because the reporter started to ask, are they American drones? And then she stopped and said, are they U.S. military drones? And you saw Sandra Singh's face kind of like, well, and then she didn't really explain it. So we don't know if they're American drones. But she gave a definitive no to the idea that they are U.S. military drones. And then she went on to say local law enforcement is investigating it, which you don't do if there's a known military exercise of some kind or a known departmental exercise. So remember, one of the theories was that this was the Department of Energy, going around searching for some kind of lost nuclear material. We don't really know. But that denial seemed like it was kind of a blanket denial. I'm a little worried that my microphone's blowing out. Let me take that down just a smidge, because I can hear static in my headphones. Okay, so that's a little bit of a thing. But then the White House gave us something totally different. Again,
our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a problem because what we actually know about what went on is that these drones were flying over military bases and they were doing it in an unauthorized fashion. They flew over Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They actually had to close their airspace for hours because of drone overflights. They flew over Picatinny Arsenal, 11 different sightings over Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey, none of which were authorized. This is a no-fly zone. You're not supposed to be flying over an arsenal. They flew over Naval Weapons Station Earl, which is on the coast of Virginia. They had to use anti-drone technology, which, by the way, didn't work. They flew over a Coast Guard boat off the coast, which did not get authorization to use anti-drone technology, but wanted to because they said that there were dozens of these things following the boat. They have flown over nuclear sites. The one I am sure of is there's a nuclear site in Louisiana near New Orleans. That one got flown over, and when Trump met with the Republican governors just a few weeks ago, the governor of Louisiana, was expressing concern that this was going on and that he didn't have any answers. Then the governor of Virginia was like, we don't either. And then the governor of Wyoming was like, neither do we. And we're having them out there. So, we have all this, right? So this kind of sets the stage for, well, actually, let me give you a little bit more detail on that because I want to get to this White House conference today. But look at what Michael Schellenberger said on Chris Cuomo.
Into it. Then 3 days later, Kirby said, okay, we've looked into it, implying that they had looked into nearly 6,000 cases in about 2 or 3 days, which is very difficult to believe. I've been asking the FBI and the DOD and the DHS, FAA for the data. They won't share it with me. Biden similarly said, yeah, we looked into it. There's nothing to worry about, and we're still looking into it. So you sort of see these two things going on. They say they're looking into it, but they already looked into it. That's one of the many fishy things. The other one is that they'll sort of say, well, we know that there's nothing to worry about and there's no anomalies. And then other times they'll say, we know there's nothing to worry about, but we haven't figured out what all the drone incursions are. Chris, I think it's important for people to know that this has evolved from being a story about ordinary citizens seeing very unusually shaped drones, or so-called drones, unidentified drones, over their homes in New Jersey, to really a broader question of why have they been letting all these drone incursions occur over U.S. military bases?
So this is where it gets important.
I didn't realize how prevalent this was. I mean, it's Langley for 17 days. This was written up in the Wall Street Journal last month. Over 17 days of being able to stop unidentified drones flying over Langley, but also Picatinny Arsenal, Naval Weapons Station Earl, 4 separate U.S. military bases in Britain, 1 military base in Germany, Camp Pendleton, one of the most important Marine Corps bases in Southern California, Air Force Plant 42 Skunk Works, where they developed the stealth bomber, where they're developing stealth fighters, Hill Air Force Base in Utah, the Minuteman silos in Northeast Colorado. I mean, that's just a partial list of all the places where they have had uncontrolled drone incursions. The idea that that's not something you would worry about is absurd.
So I agree. That's absurd, right? But here's the White House today under the Trump administration.
I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States.
Bullshit. That's what I have to say to that is bullshit. There's no freaking way. None of this adds up. None of this adds up. This is such a huge problem. And I want to remind you actually of something else that I came across. Lou Elizondo, who used to be the head of the UFO hunting unit over at the Pentagon, he was actually on Chris Cuomo as well. And he said this.
What I've been told by some, and again, this is, let me caveat here, this is complete speculation. I cannot say this is happening or not. But there are some people who have reported that these things are coming out of the water and they're zipping off away at fantastical speeds. If that's the case, what we may have here is a confused public. We might have some people reporting true UAP events, followed by a Department of Defense response by launching drones to go ahead and try to find these UAPs.
Okay, so we have weird anomalous characteristics. Nobody's ever figured out where these drones are coming from, where they're going to. There's tons of them. They're the size of cars. They're flying low over neighborhoods. Nobody can figure out what they're looking at here. Law enforcement has tried to interdict them. They can't use any of the technology that they have available to try to stop these things. They have the capacity to go fast. They have the capacity to go stealth. The governor of New Jersey said, when we get eyes on them, they disappear. There's something very freaking not right going on with this story. I want to give you one more piece of information here that I think is relevant to your overall consideration, and that is Matt Laszlo, who's a journalist who covers Capitol Hill. He also runs a Substack that's broken into topic areas, and one of them is UAPs, so Ask-a-Poll UAPs. He was on with Sean Spicer on January 13th, and they were talking about the fact that not only are the drones still there, but members of Congress are actually kind of freaking out about it. So check this out.
So the drones are still there?
As far as I know, and they haven't. And so the exact quote from Eli Crane, the former Navy SEAL, who's now a Republican in Congress, is, I don't think everything's fine. Like, the people who are paying attention are unsettled, and especially as they keep pressing the Pentagon and FBI for answers and hearing no answers, it is unsettling to the core. And now, yes, lawmakers would love, like, I've been a reporter covering Congress 19 years, so I've covered for Playboy and Rolling Stone, I covered cannabis and those issues, and incoming Secretary of State Marco Rubio at one point quipped with me, "Oh, you just want to talk about pot?" And then I ask him about this issue, and he's like, "Hey, let's talk about pot." You know, they would rather talk about anything than this, because this kind of shows how powerless they are, because they've been asking these questions now for months and months, more than a year, and they haven't been getting not only satisfactory answers that they can share with their constituents, they haven't gotten satisfactory answers for themselves and their families and their communities, etc.
So I actually asked Matt Laszlo about this. We follow each other on X. And I said, you know, I'd posted that video of him, and I said, significant insight from Matt Laszlo on the UAP drones. If they make members of Congress this uncomfortable due to lack of answers, they should do the same for all of us. He replied, I'm waiting for them to tell me otherwise, yet they can't, at least not senior senators with top secret clearances. And I said, but you know the vibe, you're a veteran reporter, something's off here. They're worried, aren't they? And he replies, 100%. So, that was January 13th. We're being fed a story, and that story is not true. Now, what the reasons are for this story, for this cover-up, is unclear to me. There are possibilities, right? Possibility number one, if we're going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Trump administration, because Trump has promised to be transparent, he's already declassified the JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King Jr. files, which people have been asking for decades. He has promised to be forthright and transparent about the drones. But this statement we got today of that they're just FAA-approved drones does not wash with the incursions over the military bases. You know, we didn't even talk about the fact that commercial airspace was shut down. There was a press conference at the airport in Long Island. The name of the airport escapes me, and I couldn't find the video before setting this up. But there was a press conference just a few weeks ago where they said we may have to shut down the airport because there's so many of these drones flying over that it's posing a flight safety risk to our aircraft. There was actually a Gulfstream jet that I believe took off from one of the airports in New York or New Jersey, somewhere on the East Coast, that collided with a metallic object at 25,000 feet, suffered engine damage, and had to make an emergency landing. Now, first of all, typical drones don't fly at 25,000 feet, but they were able in their forensic investigation of the damaged aircraft to determine that it was a metallic object that ran into them at 25,000 feet. So what the hell was that? There was allegedly, and I wasn't able to pull up the story here before this, but I saw somebody talking about it earlier today, that there actually was a drone near the White House sometime in the last week, and they actually scrambled F-16s to intercept. So again, you don't do that for FAA-approved drones. This is the same line that John Kirby was giving us when Biden was still in office, saying that these are just hobbyists, they are commercial drones, they're law enforcement drones. Clearly, that is not the whole story. I want to listen to this White House press conference again because I want to look for the semantic nuance that might be here.
I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity.
So FAA-approved drones for research and other purposes, what does that mean? Who could be behind these drones? Who would be flying these drones that would get FAA approval when, number one, the FAA shut down drone flights over New Jersey for weeks in December because this had become such a big issue. So why, if the FAA had approved of these drones, would they also say no more drone flights? That doesn't make sense. If they were just hobbyists and others who enjoy flying drones, they also wouldn't do that if they knew that. So that doesn't make sense. Who would be doing research and other things with drones that would then also fly into unauthorized airspace over military bases, but not inform the commanders of those bases, compelling them to actually try to take the drones out or send them back. Again, they have de-droning technology at these bases. They deployed them at least at Naval Station Earl, and I heard that they also did at one of the nuclear sites, and they didn't work in either case. They were not able to interfere with these drones. There's something anomalous going on here. There's something very strange. And so what I keep asking myself is, are they lying to us intentionally? Are they covering something up because they feel that it is important enough to deceive the public? Were they given bad information because the research that they did only pulled up whatever was written down by people in the previous administration, and they didn't take notes on this because of whatever the nature of this situation is? Trying to give the benefit of the doubt. I am a Trump voter. I am a Trump supporter, but this is not okay. Like, I'm not okay with the answer that we're getting. And to me, it tells me that there's something more sinister going on. Now, UFO brain, because I follow this all the time, does tell me that perhaps what's going on here is that the White House is hedging its bets with the language that they're using. I saw a video earlier today, Lieutenant Commander Blitch, or Lieutenant Colonel Blitch, who was one of the guys who was interviewed by Ross Coulthart in relation to Jake Barber's team, the Skywatcher team, the UFO retrieval team. There was a bunch of interviews over the weekend. If you're not up to date on that, look for the Jake Barber interview. Look for News Nation and Ross Coulthart. But there was an interview with him that was done on a secondary show. It was the Good Trouble show with Matt Ford. And in this clip that I saw, maybe I can pull it up real quick, Dr. John Blitch, who was part of the Skywatcher team, did an interview with the Good Trouble show, and he said this. Check this out.
Anyway, so I went to him with this heavy heart that I had heard about these military abductions, and I asked him flat out, Sergeant Major, I told him a little bit of my background, and I asked him point blank, is our military involved in any of this? And he looked at the floor, which I was not expecting, because he's always a straight shooter, always looking you straight in the eye. And then he looked up at me and he stared at me straight in the eye and he said, yes. But you got to understand, we had no choice. They were going to do it anyway. And so they allowed us to be observers just to make sure that their claim that they never permanently harmed anybody, they would have to do, some uncomfortable procedures, just like my Labrador Retriever had done at the vet, right? Vets have to cause some pain in order to see where the problem is.
Okay, so it's a disturbing clip, right? But he's talking about alien abductions, NHI abductions of military personnel, potentially of civilians as well. And he's saying that the military, whoever this guy is that he was talking to, he asked, according to this post, it was Sergeant Major Robert O'Dean, about these military abductions. And basically the guy admitted to him, yeah, you know what? We are involved because we didn't have any choice. We didn't have any choice because the aliens, the NHIs, were going to do these abductions and these experiments on human beings anyway. And we were given the option of basically being like UN observers. We got to watch and make sure they weren't doing human rights violations, that they weren't actually hurting the people that they were abducting. They were going to do it whether we said yes or not. So we opted to participate so that we could observe and make sure they weren't hurting people, which they claimed that they weren't doing. So what if, again, wild ass speculation, but what if when they say the FAA approved these drones for research and other purposes, it's just like that. It's just like letting aliens abduct people against their will, without their permission, and perform experiments on them because they're going to do it anyway and you can't stop them. So what if it's NHI tech? What if these drones are authorized, quote unquote, by the FAA because there's nothing we can do to stop them? That's one possibility, right? I mean, when nothing else adds up and when nothing else makes sense, as in the immortal words of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, in the mouth of Sherlock Holmes, when you have eliminated the impossible, the improbable, whatever's left, no matter how improbable, must be the answer. So I don't know what to make of this, but I know that it is impossible that this story that the FAA authorized the use of these drones does not comport with anything that we know about the situation so far. So what we're left with at the end of this is more questions than answers. Why did the Trump administration blanch on this? Why did they not tell us what's actually going on? This is clearly anomalous. This is clearly, a problem. This is a national security issue. Our military bases, if this was, an unacknowledged special access program, a USAP, a black program, I still don't believe that they would be operating over civilian airspace where these things could be filmed and photographed and witnessed by hundreds, if not thousands of people. They wouldn't be doing incursions over U.S. military bases without notifying them that some kind of exercise is going on. You don't test experimental tech where the public can see it. Over and over and over again, we hear from military pilots that this stuff is tested on testing ranges in the middle of nowhere for a reason. And that reason is that we don't want this technology becoming known, because the whole point in having secret technology is that it gives you a strategic advantage over your enemies. You don't put it out there where people can take selfies with it and throw it up on their TikTok page. That's not how this works. They don't fly it over military bases and not let the commanders know. They don't fly it over nuclear plants and not let those facilities know, hey, there's some kind of operation going on. Don't worry, we're aware of it. They don't have to give them details, but they're not going to tell them nothing. That's insane. I've seen people online, maybe there's some kind of readiness drill. No, you don't do readiness drills unless the people who are supposed to be ready are aware of the drill. You don't pretend to be potentially a foreign adversary or some kind of threat, because that's how you start big problems. That's how you end up with things getting shot down that shouldn't get shot down. This story is really under my skin. I expected more honesty from this administration. And I expected that whatever we got wouldn't be so insultingly illogical that you can't make sense out of it whatsoever. This entire situation is, it's not adding up. Now, I don't have anybody to talk to about this. I don't have a guest coming on. I'm not even going to extend this show, artificially. I just kind of wanted to get the facts out here because I think we need to get talking about it, because I've seen a lot of people out there, both in the news and in the UFO community, just accepting that this answer is the answer. And it's not. It's not the answer. So keep pursuing the answer. We need to keep the pressure on. This is not sufficient. And I guarantee, I haven't seen a single post from Ross Coulthart this afternoon, but I guarantee you that he is going to go on the air and say that this is complete bunk. And so is anybody who knows anything about this. This is not the real story. These are not just FAA-approved drones. Are there FAA-approved drones up there? Yeah, sure there are. There are private drones, there are commercial drones, there are law enforcement drones, there are probably military drones, all trying to figure out what the hell's going on up there. Those are up there too, but you can't hide behind saying, the FAA approved those. That is not what the bulk of these are. To this day, nobody has been able to identify a single model of one of these drones and say, this is where this came from. They're saying that they're the size of cars, the size of SUVs, that they're loitering in the air for 6 hours at a time or more, that nobody is seeing them launch and nobody is seeing them land. There are reports of them literally coming out of the ocean. Like, what are we doing? Do we really think that we can play this game this way? Keep digging. That's all I can say. Keep digging. I'm going to end here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.